Let's bring in New Jersey Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew. He serves on the House Judiciary Committee, so he knows a lot about laws and lawmaking. Congressman, first, what's your reaction to what we expect to hear from the president tomorrow?
Political pandering at the worst level. For years, there have been, obviously, since the beginning of the country, the Supreme Court has been there, and there have always been decisions that either Republicans didn't like or Democrats didn't like or both didn't like, but that's part of it. They are an independent body, and they should be so. What this president, Joe Biden, is trying to do, in essence, is destroy the Supreme Court. His administration, the people around him, the far left, have no respect for the rule of law, no respect for the basic foundation and structure of the United States of America. It is extremely disappointing. But, Eric, I'm not surprised, because whether it is with depleting our gas reserves in order to just try to temporarily lower the price of gases because of all his bad energy policies, or paying off everybody's student loans because, quite frankly, universities and colleges cost too much these days, he's willing to do anything and everything to make sure that they win. It's wrong. You have to try to be a statesman once in a while. This is truly disappointing.
Let's break down a couple of his proposals. First of all, term limits. You know, it's a lifetime appointment. What do you think about term limits?
Term limits are not a place. They don't have a place in the Supreme Court. I mean, we have functioned for all these years without it. And the reason they don't is because any justice shouldn't be worried that, well, I'm going to jam as many decisions as I can because I'm only going to be here so many years. It doesn't work. And there's no reason for it. And people have tried to bring this up because there have, including Franklin Delano Roosevelt, those that want to pack the Supreme Court with their people. The Supreme Court, as the founders envisioned it, was to reflect gradual change, just like the U.S. Senate is to reflect gradual change, where the House of Representatives is more immediate change. It's a system in which our country won't go too much awry, but they don't care about this. And that's one of the reasons they want to have this, because they just want to change the court as quickly as they can. They've also talked about increasing the number of justices. I haven't heard that most recently, but that's another idea that they have as well.
He's also discussing presidential immunity, bringing a congressional bill after the controversial ruling by the Supreme Court granting the president presumptive immunity. You know, look, Congressman, we've been taught since kids, no man is above the law. And as you know, critics and Democrats have really slammed that, fearing that it could lead to, a dictatorship or authoritarian dictatorship in this country, throwing out the Constitution, that the Supreme Court did just that. Their words, not mine. What's your view of that criticism?
The founders always envisioned presidential immunity. It's always been there. You can't weaponize the judiciary, nor should you, against a particular president. A president has to be able to make decisions, whether Republican or Democrat. What we're going to have, every single president, when their time is up or during their time, is going to be brought to court over different decisions that they make. That's wrong. It weakens our presidency. It weakens the country. We've never done it before. We are the greatest country on the face of the earth, and we have done very well with the system that's in place. Sometimes liberals don't like it. Sometimes conservatives don't like it. Sometimes Republicans don't like it. Sometimes Democrats don't like it. That's the way it is. And that's when you know you're doing a good job. These are all political pandering. And by the way, Eric, you know as well as I do, it's not going to happen. It takes 2/3 of Congress, 2/3 of the Senate, 3/4 of the states. This is just for an election. They're using the Constitution in order to win an election. Shameful.
Well, certainly, Vice President Harris has been using this, pointing to Roe versus Wade. Here is what she said back in March, basically, about these issues with the Supreme Court. Let's listen.
President Donald Trump handpicked 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would overturn Roe. He intended for them to take your freedoms, and he brags about it.
What's your reaction to that? You know, she accuses President Trump of using the Supreme Court for political purposes.
Every president throughout history picks the Supreme Court justices. That's the way it has always been since our founding. It's, again, to reflect the will of the people. They elect a president who then puts forward certain Supreme Court justices. That's not unusual. We've had liberal courts, and all of us who are more conservative have complained about that, but never suggested that you should completely gut the Constitution and gut the Supreme Court of the United States. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, said that there were real constitutional issues with Roe versus Wade, and she was very pro-choice, but she said there were real issues. The only thing that's changed now is that it's going to be up to the individual states. Whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, it doesn't mean that you should destroy the Constitution in order to get your point across.
And finally, I opened this segment up talking about Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his famous or infamous packing of the Supreme Court effort. He won by a landslide in 1936. 1937, he proposes expanding the court. Here's what has been written about that. Let me read to you from the Bill of Rights Institute. He framed the issue as a struggle between popular government and a non-elected judicial oligarchy bent on preventing needed social and economic reforms to cure the nation's festering economic problems. Quote, we cannot yield our constitutional destiny to the personal judgment of a few men who, fearful of the future, would deny us the necessary means of dealing with the present, he said. But the damage had been done, soon denounced Roosevelt's court-packing plan. The proposal drew opposition not only from Republicans, but also from key Democratic leaders. As I said, that went down in flames. What do you predict will happen to President Biden's plan?
Oh, this plan's a nothing burger. It's not going anywhere. But the fact that he would produce the plan, the fact that he would push the plan, the fact that he doesn't care, and the people around him, including Vice President Harris, they don't care about the Constitution. What Roosevelt did was wrong. He mistakenly thought, because he had won in such an overwhelmingly mandate, that he then was going to become, to some degree, a dictator and no longer a president. That should never happen. I don't care if you're a Republican president or a Democrat president. You never, ever should do that. This country is such a finely tuned mechanism, and you can make change, but it has to be made with the rule of law, carefully and gradually, so we don't do something stupid.
We'll see what the president says tomorrow at the proposal. Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey. Congressman, always good to see you. Thank you for your judicial insight today.
My pleasure.
Of course. Arthel?